Hi, my name is Arlene from Well 50 Plus, and I have not uploaded a video in a while. And I even wrestle with this one because, well, it is probably a deeper, heavier subject than what I'm usually used to doing. But I think I kind of had to ask myself not just how it would help me, but more importantly, would it help you? Would it add value to you? So I decided to go ahead and do it. And to be perfectly honest, I probably needed to. And I am convinced that it's going to split into two videos because I don't want to race and try to beat the clock like I normally do. My camera will only film for 11 minutes and then it's going to split. And I'm just going to let it do that. I just don't want to be looking at it, thinking about it. I do have notes because I wanted to make sure that I stay on subject. And this is about gaslighting and about this is about something that I went through that I think a lot of us have gone through. And it doesn't have to be necessarily with a spouse. It can be with a family member, a relative. It can also be in a professional setting. But, excuse me, although it's been over 35 years since my first marriage, it's only been until recently that I found out that some aspects of this actually have a name. And gaslighting is really just the acts, the events. It's not descriptive of the actual personality. The actual personality of someone who may engage in gaslighting is a very, excuse me, narcissistic personality. And with that comes control and it comes manipulation. Now let me just say this. I never ever consider myself a victim. It never crossed my mind. I was not going to be labeled that. Not a victim of domestic abuse. I was very vocal. I fought back. I never cringed. I paid for it. But if I was going to go down, I was going to go down swinging. So no labels. It was just an unfortunate marriage that taught me a lot about tortured souls and ways to avoid falling into the same thing, except that I feel that in recent times I have kind of fallen into the same thing. But I'm going to touch on that at the end. To gaslight is to manipulate a person into questioning their own sanity and their own ability to perceive events correctly. This term comes from the 1938 stage play Gaslight, in which a husband attempts to drive his wife crazy by dimming the lights, which were powered by gas, in their home. When his wife points it out, he denies that the light changed. Gaslighting is an extremely effective form of emotional abuse that causes a victim to question their own feelings, instincts, and sanity, which gives the abuser a lot of power. And we know that abuse is all about power and control. And then this play, Gaslight, later on became a film with Ingrid Bergman, 1944, also called Gaslight. This was my first marriage. Now, I can't share everything that went on because my children, including my oldest, was my first husband's son, and he could potentially watch this, and plus my other children may watch, and not everything needs to be shared or said. And gaslighting involves manipulation. The person usually doesn't say or do anything in front of others. He twists everything to make you feel like you are the reason why hell happens. Eventually you wonder if you are the cause for a crappy marriage and a terrible relationship. So I met my first husband. I met him after I joined the service. I left Navy School in San Diego in 1979 and got stationed in Naples, Italy. I was 19. He was my first everything, my first boyfriend, my first lover, my first everything. He was also in the service. I married him when I was 20, and by then he was 23. He was very handsome, young, charismatic, charming. He was also extremely jealous. From the beginning of our relationship, he thought I was having an affair, that I was cheating. And he would always say, I know you are, and it's just a matter of time before I catch you. And when I catch you, I'm going to cut up your face so badly, no one will ever want you. And I was as innocent as they came. I was raised in a very strict Latin Catholic family. I was not street smart. Cheating, having an affair, that kind of thing was the farthest thing from my mind. I loved him. I wanted us to be happy. I wanted to be a good wife. We rarely ever went a day without getting into a huge fight. His imagination and the certainty that I was doing things always ruined happy moments, including our wedding day and the day when our son was born. He would whisper things loud enough so that only I could hear. You know, they were very cruel and very humiliating. And he always justified all of this. He never said he was sorry about anything. He always found a way to explain his behavior, even those times when physical abuse was involved. And that is one of the biggest traits of a narcissist. They never, ever say they are sorry. They always justify everything. When I got stationed in Bermuda after the birth of our son, I worked in what is called trailers. They were modular trailers that were kind of connected but completely open for the most part on the inside, and no one could go past the reception area because it was a very highly classified place. And he was constantly asking what went on beyond the reception area. He was certain that beyond that reception area, there were many rooms and we were all just having sex. And he would start by making some sort of a joking remark, and then he would continue. He would not stop. And it would escalate. And I would deny it to reassure, but he would not stop. And it was tormenting. It was harassing. There was not a thing that I could say. He would just continue until it would just blow up into a huge fight, and all from just a thought, his imagination. And this, of course, this grieved me because all I wanted was to have a happy marriage. And you know, interesting, my sister came to visit once, and she was sitting at the table with us, and I made a statement about someone had complimented me, said something about to the fact that I was pretty or something like that, and I stood up, and I think I went to the kitchen, and he had said something to the fact that, well, you're not that pretty, really. And my sister looked at him, and she essentially said, what's the deal with you? Why would you say something like that? And he said, well, everybody's always telling her how beautiful she is, and I have to keep her level-headed to make sure that her head doesn't get too big. So I basically had to bring that balance. So even though the abuse was more emotional, he was also physically abusive. You know, he hit me on the face so hard one day when I got a little sassy with him because I couldn't take it anymore. And I went to work with the side of my face just all black and blue and swollen. And of course, people at work asked me what was going on. They hit me. And of course, I said no. And this happened several times. I was an extremely unhappy person. I mean, my mother would call me, and she could hear it in my voice, and she would ask, honey, are you happy? And I would say, I would always say yes, because I didn't want anyone to know, and I could not explain it. I could not explain the dynamics. I could not explain the behavior. I could not explain why things happen and how they got so bad. And when we had our son, we had not bought everything that we needed. We didn't have a crib, and because I had lost 2 pregnancies prior to that, one of them I was carrying twins, so I didn't want to buy too much until the baby was here. So the same day that I was released from the hospital, my mother had traveled down to stay with us and help, and my mother and I decided to go to the store and get a crib. And we did, except that the car broke down. And I was able to pull it into a shop that started looking at it. And I was going to call him. And mother said, no, don't call. He's with the baby. There's nothing that he can do. So I said, okay. So I waited. I didn't call him right away, which was a huge mistake. No cell phones back then. When I finally did call, which was about 2 hours later, to tell him that the car had broken down, he thought that we had taken that long because we had gone to a bar to drink. I had just been released from the hospital. And this is probably going to split here in just a minute. We had the biggest fight ever. And